Hello, you're watching HornbillTV. And after signing what has been called the father of all deals, India has secured a major strategic and economic advantage in global trade after a new deal with the United States sharply reduced tariffs on Indian exports to 18%. The move places India ahead of key competitors like China, Pakistan and Bangladesh and strengthens New Delhi's position in global supply chains. Here's how. India has emerged as a key beneficiary of Washington's latest trade recalibration. Under the new India-US trade arrangement, American tariffs on Indian exports have been reduced to around 18%, significantly lower than the duties imposed on rival exporting nations. In comparison, Chinese goods face tariffs of over 30%, while exports from Pakistan and Bangladesh attract higher or comparable rates. This shift dramatically improves India's price competitiveness in the US market, the world's largest consumer economy. Trade experts say the move directly aligns with the US-China Plus One strategy, which aims to reduce dependence on Chinese manufacturing by diversifying supply chains. India, with its scale, political stability and growing manufacturing base, now stands out as a preferred alternative. The tariff reduction is expected to benefit key Indian sectors including textiles, garments, pharmaceuticals, engineering, goods, leather products, gems and jewelry, and light manufacturing, areas where Bangladesh and Pakistan have traditionally competed and where China has dominated globally. Compared to China, India now offers US buyers lower tariff costs, reduced geopolitical risk, and expanding production capacity. Against Pakistan and Bangladesh, India's advantage lies in diversified manufacturing, stronger compliance standards, and deeper bilateral engagement with Washington. Economists note that even a 1 to 2% tariff advantage can be decisive in large volume export contracts, giving Indian manufacturers a crucial edge in pricing negotiations. Beyond trade numbers, the deal carries strategic weight. It signals stronger India-US economic alignment at a time of global supply chain realignment, rising protectionism and intensifying US-China tensions. However, analysts caution that tariffs alone will not guarantee export growth. Infrastructure efficiency, logistic costs, quality standards and policy stability will determine how effectively India converts this advantage into long-term gains. Still, consensus is clear. The new trade deal has tilted the playing field in India's favor, reinforcing its position as a leading alternative manufacturing hub in the global economy. And with the new trade deal signed between the India and the US, here are some of the Indian leaders say as to what the India-US father of all deals would lead to.
Good relationship. India committed to not only no longer purchasing Russian oil, but buying oil from the United States, also perhaps from Venezuela too, which we know will now have a direct benefit on the United States and the American people. And in addition to that, Prime Minister Modi committed to $500 billion of investments into the United States, including for transportation, for energy, and for agricultural products as well. So this is another great trade deal.
Just to follow up, Caroline,
And I really appreciate your time. Your reaction to the announcement just 24 hours ago, what do you make of it, how all of this really played out?
Well, I think the announcement of the conclusion of the trade deal was very welcome and will provide a major boost to U.S.-India relations. I think that this is a big step in the right direction. I don't think that the relationship will turn around overnight. I think that there has been a lot of trust lost over the last 10 months. And there were not only trade problems, but also, there have been disagreements between the U.S. and India, for example, on the aftermath of the India-Pakistan conflict, what happened there. So while this is a major step forward, I think that it will take time to get the U.S.-India relationship fully back on track. Now, in terms of what led to this announcement, I think it could be several things. I think number one, Ambassador Sergio Gore arriving in New Delhi on January 9th, making positive statements over the last several weeks. And I think that he probably was able to communicate with President Trump indicate the benefits of the deal, how important the relationship was. So I think that could be one contributing factor. The second contributing factor, I believe, was the fact that India's imports of Russian oil had been going down, particularly in December, and that was noticed by President Trump and appreciated. And then the third point would be the fact that India concluded a free trade agreement with the EU just last week, which shows that India has some options on the table for its goods. And so I think that could have prompted the U.S. to want to speed up its own trade agreement with India. So I think several factors probably played into how this all turned out, but those are just some of my thoughts.
First of all, I'm very excited. I know that Prime Minister Modi and President Trump have spent time together in the past. I know he's come to America several times. I know President Trump is very fond of him and understands what an important influence he is on the world's largest population, on one of the fastest growing economies, on what's soon to be the third largest GDP in the world, probably within the next few years. It's great to see that. I want to see India thrive. I think if you can combine the world's largest and oldest democracies, I think we could usher in an era of peace for this next generation that I think would be incredibly stabilizing for the entire world. We see the world very similarly. I think there's been some unfortunate understandings recently on everything from where we purchase energy to immigration to just misunderstandings in the general public. That's what I'm here for. So make sure we massage that, smooth it out, make sure we have great relationships rolling forward. I think as India transitions from buying Russian oil to the United States, it will once again stabilize the world. These kind of relationships are imperative to the future of peace and prosperity for the entire world. Not to mention the Ukrainian region.
Now, you did talk about, all the players who actually took this to the finish line. The deal is done. It is being papered as of now. Who really pushed this to the finish line?
Well, look, the old saying is that victory has 1,000 fathers and mothers. So I don't want to start singling out people, but I would say that, for Ambassador Gore, this is a real special moment. He's been in India just for a few days, and he has clearly had a very catalytic impact on helping drive this through. He clearly has access in the Oval Office to President Trump. So I congratulate him. I congratulate Ambassador Quatra for having given a very sober view and detailed and expert view to Prime Minister Modi. I think they've done a lot of good work to try to drive this across the finish line. But for me, this is the beginning of what could be many chapters to come. One of the reasons I left government service and went into the private sector was my feeling that the strategic relationship was far outpacing the economic relationship, and that the U.S.-India trade and business relationship was woefully underpowered compared to our relations with Canada, Mexico, the EU, even with China, with which we have some strategic issues. So the work of USIBC these past few years, and indeed for the past 50 years, has to argue for ambition in our trade relations. You'd be surprised to know, Rina, that there have been almost no trade and economic agreements between the United States and India in our 75 years of bilateral relations. I think we have an open skies treaty, and that's about it. So this I view as phase 1A of what could be many more agreements to come that will concretize and create greater predictability in our relationship such that we can hit $500 billion a year in bilateral trade in goods and services and vault India-U.S. trade into the front ranks of global prosperity.
The India-US trade deal marks a notable shift in global trade dynamics, offering India relatively improved access to the American market compared to China, Pakistan and Bangladesh. While lower tariffs enhance India's competitiveness, the actual impact will depend on how effectively businesses leverage this window through scale, efficiency and compliance. As global supply chains continue to evolve, the agreement positions India as a stronger participant, though long-term gains will ultimately rest on execution rather than policy alone. For more stories like this, keep watching HornbillTV. Goodbye.